Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book club podcast where each episode we read and discuss a different comic series or graphic novel. Visit our website for a list of upcoming topics so you can read along with us. Warning, this show contains explicit language as well as spoilers for its topic work. On this episode, we read Mockingbird by Chelsea Cain and Kate Niemczyk. Welcome to View from the Gutters, episode 186. I am Tobiah Panchin.
I'm Joe Preddy.
Brant Gillihan Eddie.
You ever have the weird sensation that you just like stopped existing for a couple of months?
Yeah, it's really... I mean, have you guys been floating around in that little like two-dimensional square thing that just kind of floated through space?
The one that's always flipping?
Yeah.
That makes you so dizzy.
Dude, that's kind of been my life lately. It's been really weird. Also, somebody wouldn't shut up about Jor-El. It was really disconcerting.
Well, look, I was trying to tell the council that the planet was going to be destroyed, and then they said that I was not allowed to stay. Look, that's all I have to say about it. Bitter. I'm very bitter.
That's fair.
So yeah, we are back from our 3-ish month hiatus.
Is it really that long? Yeah, I guess it really was that long.
We were on sabbatical.
Sabbatical.
Aren't I supposed to feel a lot more rested post-sabbatical?
I mean, we're adults. I don't think you ever feel rested as an adult.
Well, you're supposed to definitely be clean. Like off the junk.
Oh, clean. Okay, I'm stiffing myself. But
Wait
you mean
a minute.
like...
I'm not on the junk, but
Are you back on the sauce?
I'm
Joe,
back on the fucking sauce.
We have been back from sabbatical for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're back on the sauce.
I am. Listen, beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. If there is a God. If there's not a God, then it's still proof that the world wants us to be happy.
That's fair.
Can I tell you that reminds me of the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, when there's like the vignette of them in Sherwood Forest, and at one point they pan past Friar Tuck, who's like, and let me tell you, children, about one of God's greatest things, beer.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty fucking clear that I am the Friar Tuck of this organization, of this outfit.
I would have thought you more Little John, but okay.
Well, I don't know.
I take you for a Will Scarlet.
Me?
Yeah, you.
So you think I'm a lying, backstabbing son of a bitch?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I do.
Or that you're Christian Slater circa like 1990 something when he was like super hot. Just saying.
I do sort of redeem myself by the end of that movie, don't I?
Yeah, you totally do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. I might be okay with that then.
But in Prince in Tights, you totally cut your belt and your pants fall off. So
Men in Tights.
Men in Tights. What did I say?
Prince in Tights.
I'm in the bag.
Perfect. So, Brant, you wanted to say a little something.
Oh, yeah. So people probably noticed that we stopped recording. Gosh, I hope they did, because if they didn't, that's depressing.
They're still catching up.
There have been comments. We've been getting
yes,
emails.
we have actually gotten comments. Well, so one of the things that I just wanted to say is that one of my personal objectives coming back was that we had a lot of conversations at View from the Gutters about trying to be, trying to kind of diversify what we're doing in so much of like how we talk about things and what we talk about, and, trying to look more at cross-pollination across other media types, that
interdisciplinary
learning. Please visit www.evergreen.edu to learn more. And so I just wanted to say for the record that I've been particularly pleased, actually, in our absence, that we have gotten some feedback. Folks have been interacting with us. That's been awesome. I'd like to see more of that. I feel like more and more my interest in looking at these books and talking about them is about talking about how they relate to current events, how they relate to the comics industry, social theory, that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like reading books and talking about them, but I like talking more about how they interface with the world that we exist in. I think that's really important right now. And I like the fact that it's giving us more and more access to the community that seems to feel the same. So that is all to say, follow us on Facebook, listen to us on Twitter, if we're really doing a good job on Twitter, which I'm not sure
we're doing a terrible job on Twitter, but we are there and we do see things that are posted.
But yeah, I want more dialogue. I want to be more interactive. I'm hoping that our refreshed new outlook on life will lead us to more interesting projects and things and all that. And
Yeah, once upon a time, we talked about actually having a comment response section where we read things that people have sent to us and talk more about their contributions to our conversation. And if we got enough comments to do that as a regular feature, I would love for that to be a thing.
And
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge to listeners.
Yeah, if that's something you want to do, like, you are part of this conversation. This is not a conversation we're having with ourselves. This is not
This is
an
a book
echo
club.
chamber.
And everybody who listens to the show is a part of our book club.
Yeah.
Please add your voices.
So
unless you're a jerk, then I don't want to talk to you. No,
I
I'm just
mean,
kidding.
just come fucking come loaded for bear.
Well, if you've got an opinion, come prepared to throw down and say what you feel.
Because I think I'll wrap that up by saying it's fucking good to be back. I miss doing this shit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've just been off with Adam talking about Iron Fist.
Yeah, which I think is a good example of more of the kinds of things that I think we're going to try.
Do. Absolutely.
I've got some fun stuff planned, and
I know that we're talking about also.
We've sorted out some logistical issues that we're making kind of content creation maybe a little bit more tricky between the three of us. But
can we be honest with the community here? Toby was tired of being locked in a dark dungeon-like atmosphere with little water and no food. I think that's really selfish of him, but apparently
he was in cookie jail. Toby was in cookie
Society
jail.
for Concern for Adults or whatever the heck that thing is, after they tried to bring me up in front of court, said that I had to let him out occasionally.
So
fine, Toby gets time off. I'm making air quotes.
And credit where credit is doing. Toby was doing all of the fucking editing. So
no. I was looking over his shoulder and making sure that occasionally he pushed a button.
That's true. I would text him occasionally while he was doing it. So
let's not minimize our
let's just all. I forgot where we're living.
Is that why you kept texting me? I want more D. You just wanted me to hit the D key more?
No. Listen, that was a private message.
I was gonna say those are private Slack channel messages.
Okay.
Toby, we're talking about public producer chat Slack messages. Jeez Louise.
No, to be perfectly legit, like my day job during Christmas just freaking killed me. I do legitimately do a lot of the work to put out the show, and I burned out hard. Yeah, and I personally needed a break.
Yeah, well, and there was also just the issue that unfortunately I've mentioned it on the show before, but I have a 6-year-old son who's exceptionally dynamic. I got promoted recently. Things have been really busy for me. Joe has decided that he needs to work in the hinterlands of a far-flung place called Tacoma. And
winter is always a pain in the ass because it's very much a feast or famine situation. So I think we were all burnt out.
Yeah, but you know what? It's springtime.
Yeah.
The sun has come back.
Yeah.
I think that there are good times ahead, and I think that we are on a path to making View from the Gutters a more sustainable operation for us and a more fun operation for everybody out there in listener land.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're back. And I'm excited about the things we've got on the horizon.
However, on one slightly, actually kind of a major somber note, we did want to mark in our return episode the passing of a really good friend of the show and Olympia community member that means a lot to us and a lot of folks around us in the comic community, and that's Matthew Montestioca, who unfortunately passed away from some health complications about a week, maybe a couple weeks ago.
I think it was,
Depending on when this goes out, he passed away in late March.
I think when
it'll have been a few weeks.
It'll have been a little while. But I just wanted to say that Matt was basically my co-pilot in life. No. When I came back to comics, it started by working in Olympic Cards and Comics. I was working unpack shifts with Matt and one of the other folks at Olympic Cards and Comics over in Lacey. And Matt and I had a penchant for getting into trouble with each other to the point where we literally had to be separated like school children. I also will always remember Matt because he, out of nowhere and unprompted, mentioned to me and had purchased, I think, my ticket for me and was like, we're going to go see Bruce Campbell present at University of Puget Sound. And so that was one of the best 4 hours of my life, driving up there, hearing Bruce Campbell give an actual speech. and then talk about a bunch of random stuff, which was awesome. And there are pictures to prove it.
Did he have a
Yep.
podium? Did he bang on
He
that
actually
podium?
he actually did have a podium. I don't remember if he banged on it, but there is an amazing picture of me that exists. And if I can, I'll try to upload it to Facebook. I have to get a physical copy of it from Gab because she has it at the shop of
Yep.
me standing
I've
next to
seen
Bruce Campbell making weird hand gestures and rocking out, quote unquote. And Bruce Campbell basically being like, "Oh God, what is this guy doing?" It was amazing. The other thing that I will always thank, but also not thank Matthew Montestioca for is that we used to play poker on a regular basis with a group of us from the card shop. And when things got really tense towards the end of the night, when people were about to win money, he used to start singing this song called Friendly Game of Poker. And I literally find myself saying it to people indiscriminately still 10 years later. So that's all for me to say that I'm sorry that Matt passed. It was a seriously huge bummer. And but I hope, he's found some peace in his next place. And we're going to miss him.
Yeah. Matt was one of the first people I met at Gabby's shop, which is our comic book shop of choice. Well, I guess we love both the comic shops in Olympia, but Gabby's was the first comic shop I went to when I moved here, and it was the first comic shop I had been to probably in a decade. And Matt, he was just the kind of guy that would, he welcomed me in. He introduced me to his friend group. He's probably one of the reasons I met and started hanging out with Brent. And that is totally my phone.
It wouldn't be View from the Gutters without Joe's phone going
Hey,
off.
listen.
I don't think that's actually happened in a long time.
It hasn't. It has not. But Matt, he was just a really great guy. He was fucking hilarious. I mean, the stories he would tell about the shit he did would bring tears to my eyes. He was the kind of guy that gave me a ride to the airport after playing in a Magic tournament until 2:30 in the morning because I had missed my flight and needed to get to the airport at like 5 in the morning. And that's just the kind of guy he was. And I think the world will be a little less fun and interesting without him in it. And it's a tragedy. So, well, I'll dedicate this episode to him and his memory.
I think that we can all dedicate this episode to him. I obviously didn't know him as well as you guys did. I surely met him on some number of occasions, but we never really hung out. But I read about him on the Olympic Cards and Comics Facebook page when he passed it, and from the comments that you guys have made, from all the comments that I saw there, it was clear that he had a very big impact on the community here, and he's going to be missed.
Yeah, he
And
absolutely will be.
So this episode is going to go out to him.
All right.
What are we
Now-
talking about?
What are we doing?
Oh, wait, this is my book, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to need a name check here. The artist, Kate Niemczyk?
Yeah, it's a Polish name. Surely.
So it's
Niemczyk?
Wits. Is there a?
Niemczyk?
I don't know.
It's it ends CZYK, which I think in Polish is actually pronounced ski or something like that.
So-
Like it's
Check.
it doesn't sound the way that it's written.
Yeah.
What is it? It's CY.
CZYK.
So that I think that is a Czech.
Check.
Yeah. What's
Niemczyk.
It could be Niemczyk.
Niemczyk.
So
That sounds
with
plausible.
many profuse apologies to Kate.
Yes.
Niemczyk,
absolutely.
question mark?
We are butchering your name, I'm sure.
We are going to talk about Mockingbird by Kate. We're just going to call her Kate from now on, and Chelsea Cain.
Yes.
And I thought it made me really happy. I actually, originally, before we went on hiatus, this was going to be my next book anyway. But I thought it would be an especially appropriate book to bring to like kind of reopen our dialogue with, because not only do I personally think it's a fun book, but it was a little bit contentious in its time. And then Marvel decided to start talking random old bullshit lately about diversity in sales.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like, kind of the kissing of the lips, perfect moment to bring this book out and just like, let's talk about
Yeah.
women, diversity, comics,
Well, in our
hilarious spy
conversation,
thrillers.
our conversation with Jen Van Meter forever ago was
back in the
kicked
fall.
off largely by
Well, basically, we asked her one question, which is, well, what do you think about what's been going on Twitter recently with Chelsea Cain?
yeah,
And then an hour and a half long conversation ensued, and we didn't get to ask any more questions.
yeah, which is largely because Jen Van Meter is an incredible person.
Yeah, she is an
And-
incredible person, and it was a great conversation,
Yeah.
which I highly recommend you go back and listen to.
Yes, go and listen to it.
I think it's like back matter 26.
And then by Hopeless Savages and Dr. Mirage because she is a fucking fantastic writer.
Truth.
And yeah, you should support her because she's amazing. Yeah, Mockingbird. Yeah. We're probably gonna get into that, and I'm gonna get to yell about how fucking stupid Marvel is being lately. And let me tell you something, I'm of a mind to do so.
You know what? For once, I'm not going to try and stop you.
Oh my god,
I definitely feel like Marvel has gone just way up their own assholes in recent months. Although what's interesting, and I was just reading this, there's apparently more to that interview with the VP of sales, whose name escapes me at this moment, that they're saying now that after Secret Empire wraps up, they're not going to do any more big events for at least 18 months. Like, and the comparison he used was Civil War II versus the Clone Conspiracy, which was a Spider-Man event that was contained specifically within the Spider-Man books.
right.
He's like, we're still going to have some small-scale crossovers like Clone Conspiracy, but we're not going to be doing any of the thing where it's like Original Sin, which leads into Axis, which leads into this, which leads into Secret Civil War, which leads into this thing. Like, after Secret Empire is wrapped, we're done. We're not doing any more big events for at least a year and a half. And I think that is actually a good move. That is something that I have been asking for what seems like years.
But I feel like if I never saw another huge crossover event again, I would be the happiest boy.
Not that I want to get too far afield here, but there were a couple of Marvel writers who did make an interesting set of comments about the value of event comics. And one of the ones that I thought was the most interesting actually was a comment that basically said, in their minds, one of the value adds of sometimes forcing the line to tie in is that it does force completionists and less, I'll say charitably, open-minded folks to buy books featuring characters they normally wouldn't look at. And like that basically like, hey, like you never would have looked at Kamala Khan, but because you have to watch, you have to get Captain Marvel's tie into Secret Empire or whatever. Like, but I mean, it's, and they even said like it's the flimsiest possible justification.
Thin,
But I thought it was nice. So David Gabriel is the gentleman that we were discussing, the VP for marketing, and I want to be very fair to him about something, because a lot of outlets basically were like, VP comes back and backpedals, VP comes back and retracts, and he, I think, was very clear that he wasn't trying to retract, he was trying to clarify, where he said that that's what they were hearing, that's what they were told from certain people, and that some of their analysis suggested that there was some truth there, but that's not necessarily how they felt about it. And I think that's important, right? Because a lot of the people who are in those positions right now are the same people who greenlit, Kamala Khan as Captain Marvel, Robbie Rodriguez as Ghost Rider, who have been working on creating, other opportunities and avenues. Now, that's not to say that they haven't had their head up their ass, not to say anything else, but I feel like in some ways Gabriel got pig-piled on for kind of being the voice of a conversation that was numbers driven, while the fact that he was acknowledging explicitly there was a social component that was not part of that conversation, but that they weren't trying to make a value judgment on per se. That's not to say that I don't think he was wrong.
Well, and this is the thing, is that I agree with you. I read that article, and the wording is definitely like, we've been hearing from certain retailers, blah, blah, blah. But this, and and this is why I don't necessarily feel too sorry for him, because I cannot recall a time where a VP of marketing or somebody in a similar position was trotting that shit out as something other than an excuse to fucking roll back something.
Sure.
And I think the thing is that really what would have been ideal for Marvel to say is that we are committed to a diverse line of comic books. And guess what, motherfuckers? We're going to be even more diverse in the future. We're going to fucking diversify our writing staff. We're going to fucking diversify our fucking art staff. But the thing is that what I get tired of is that the comic book industry, made up of Marvel and DC, is still catering to the same fucking awful, stick in the mud people that want to read the same fucking stories that they've been reading for the last 35 years. And I think that it's when you add that to a genre that's already kind of limited by its own conventions and its own bloated continuity, it's kind of like, what are you doing here, people? Because what you're not doing is doing things that are encourage new people to come into comic shops and getting into comics.
Yeah,
which is what you desperately fucking need.
I want to point out that I posted today a image on our Facebook page, which was a list of comics being published by Marvel and DC in 1977.
Yes.
Which is 40 years ago, and 90%
It wasn't 40
of it,
years ago. It was 39 years ago. Thank you very much.
Wow, you feel a little tender about that, do you?
No, I don't feel tender at all about it. If it wasn't 40 years ago, shut up.
All right.
So, when's your birthday, Jeff?
4 decades ago. And it was 90% the exact same titles that they're publishing today.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think that says something. I think that says several some things, and you can take more than one thing away from it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you can spin that as something that is entirely healthy.
And I just wonder where the young reader line is. When are they going to clean up their whole digital sales thing? Like, because these are how you're going to get people. The direct market is a dying market, right? It was something that they did to themselves, and it's biting them on the ass now because their pool is only getting small. That water is evaporating.
I think the real argument here is they need better metrics for determining what is and is not working, because they're only looking at, or at least the only metrics that we're getting are, this is how many books were shipped to retailers.
Right, which is
not how many the retailers sold, not how many were sold in digital, not anything that really gives you a true picture of what the market looks like or what would sell, but one very specific market segment that likes specific things.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, and there's been a lot of really interesting writing in the wake of all of this, talking about how the distribution model of comics through Diamond and through foreign subsidiaries like really distort what the market is actually purchasing versus what retains shelf value versus, and then of course there's the accusation that Marvel has been absolutely distorting and spiking their numbers by, awarding certain kinds of behavior and
when you have like 1 to 1,000 variant covers.
Right. Or like, some of the rebuying and all the other stuff that's happening where they can claim they moved 500,000 units, but of course they rebought 300,000 of them and didn't tell anybody. And I have to say that I feel a little all over the place about this because I think there's a lot of really great conversations, and we've certainly had them, about how comics are distributed, marketed, how they create. And then I have that, then there's that whole thing where it's like, unfortunately, Marvel exists as a corporate as an IP generating enterprise. And so if we acknowledge that Image has probably eaten a lot of their lunch, especially when it comes to those readers who would be interested in something other than traditional superhero fare, is it not the case that the market has forced Marvel to a certain extent to say, well, we only have this much more time to make this much more money. We can allow fringe experiments to occur, like Mockingbird, but at the end of the day, we need to stick to our core because those are the only things left that are going to generate enough income before we eventually evaporate entirely.
Which I think was a much more feasible argument. And the thing that upsets me is that Marvel as an individual entity, yes. Marvel as being a subsidiary of literally one of the biggest corporations on Earth. And
that's not how corporate accounting works, unfortunately.
No, I understand that. But there's also, you float. These Marvel movies are making so much fucking money. There is no reason for Marvel to be, one of the lines from that article is that seems like Marvel's just throwing everything at the wall and seeing that'll stick. Well, maybe they need to give it a little bit more fucking time. Well, because canceling series after 7 issue when they show some amount of promise, but then Daredevil's getting a new #1 every 6 months is fucking ridiculous. And this is the thing, is that they're going, well, our books aren't selling. And then they go and do things that are counterintuitive to inviting new people into the fucking clubhouse. And they're all like, DC is doing it, Marvel's doing it. Well, we need new readers. And it's like, you do need new fucking readers. And you know how you do that? You go after new readers. You don't go after the same fucking 10 people that have been reading your comic books since that list came out in 1977. And they keep saying, well, we need new readers. And then they keep engaging in the same behavior. If Marvel had a digital model that made any kind of sense and started really advertising that, I guarantee you they could pump their sales numbers way up. And you would see, I guarantee you'd see more titles like Mockingbird, like what was it? Not Valkyries. There's the Cullen Bunn book.
Fearless Defenders.
The Fearless Defenders. Books like these like little niche books, as they are, because you have to be, let's say, I don't know, a woman walking into a comic book shop, which, let me fucking tell you, I've heard from people is an incredibly hostile environment, as opposed to going to Marvel.com, paying $1.50 or 99 cents and downloading a comic book and being like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. I guarantee you those books would be super successful. And it's funny because I'm sitting here and I'm going, man, I remember who fucking said that. Andrew Chard made this argument and I was like, you are full of shit. But now I understand, as much as I hate to say it, he was fucking right.
I wonder how, what is it?
Do I need to get you an Andrew Chard was right t-shirt?
No, because I will never wear it. We're just kidding.
Marvel
I love
has a all-you-can-eat buffet digital option, don't they?
Marvel Unlimited.
Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
But it's delayed, right?
It's like 6 months behind.
I wonder what I gotta wonder what their model.
Well, their model is, we want to sell you the last 6 months worth of comics.
No.
At
I mean,
$4
I'm
or
wondering how their
$5 a
profit
book.
model looks. Like, I wonder if they're like, because I gotta imagine, the concern about Netflix, right? They're losing a lot of the more modern movies, but of course their counter argument is, well, we're still producing original content, A, and B, we still have a big catalog of things that are older that people want to rewatch.
Right.
So they don't seem too concerned about it.
Well,
and there has to be, and I just, like, don't get me wrong, I feel like you and I, Joe, are kind of the opposite ends of the collector spectrum in so much that I feel like you have a larger, more diverse pool of books that you're interested in having in your bookcase.
Yes.
In varying kinds of formats. I mean, I think you always go for the best format you can get.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if it's a paperback, it's paperback. If it's a hardcover, it's hardcover. Like, you'll take what you can get.
Yes.
Whereas I've become an exceptionally discerning consumer of my comics in that I have, and I've done this with all of my media, where there are ones that I want to read again because they just kind of make me tingly and happy, but I really don't give a shit about them in the sense of like, I want the world to know I own this and it's a hardcover and it's nice. So it's like, I've pared down my collection where it's like, I will spend $40 on a single, collected volume of whatever because it's that important to me.
Yeah.
And then I have, basically the quote unquote digital paperback versions of all the rest of them where it's like, great. Anytime I want to read this, I can read it on 75 different devices, but I really don't give a shit if it's like, prestige format, gold filigreed, all that other crap. And so I feel like, there's room in the Marvel, publishing universe for them to get to that point. But I think we've touched it. I think they're still trying to squeeze as much money out of the current model as they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a vested
interest. That's the thing, is that Marvel and DC are both trapped by the direct market.
Yeah.
Too much of their business model is wrapped up in it for them to ever abandon it wholesale.
See, and I think the problem is that they say they're trapped, but I don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true.
I think they could literally turn around tomorrow and liquidate Diamond Distribution, and they probably would be fine within 1 to 2 months. But regardless of that part, which we could go on and on about, tying this back to Mockingbird, I think the other thing about it for me is that this book made me really happy, and I've said this a lot, where it's like, I don't want necessarily more than 8 to 12 issues of a character. I want a tight experience that really makes me happy to have invested the time in learning more about that character. And if you can't keep it going, don't fucking keep it going.
Yes.
Like Mark Waid did a really good job of making Daredevil really compelling for a long time. Actually, talk about a character who now, especially by 2016, has probably been one of the few blessed characters where you could honestly say that there are a great myriad of definitive runs on that character that are worth consuming in large chunks Like I weave in and out of X-Men comics, and I can definitively say to you that it's very rare for me to think that I could take any span of 3 to 4 years and say that was worth me doing for the entire time. Whereas with Daredevil, I think you actually have that multiple times, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that's the rarity, right? Batman is the rarity. It's rare that you can find the combination of talent, interest, whatever, to hold enough people's attention to justify going for 30, 40, 50, 60 issues, especially with the same creative team. Unless you're what's his name who writes Spider-Man,
Dan Slott.
Dan Slott, and apparently are just like kind of a never-ending font of crazy, completely different things.
Or
But
Chris Claremont.
yeah,
Up
Well,
until
but that
about
didn't end well.
1993.
yeah. Unfortunately, that's
Well, yeah, but I mean, you have to remember that he wrote X-Men consistently for like 20 years.
Yeah, I have to imagine that there's got to be a point right now in Marvel's offices where occasionally they're like, "So Dan, you ready to be done? Because we're starting to we've moved the Chris Claremont clock one closer to midnight for your
Yeah, right.
career."
It's gonna go fucking insane.
And we're just waiting for you to nuclearly melt down in a Chris Claremont like fashion. No,
Well, the thing is that Dan Slott doesn't have the problem that Chris Claremont had, which was that Chris Claremont was too obsessed with mental bondage,
yeah, and half-naked
whatever
women.
his whole kink thing was that he kept bringing up over and over and over
Perhaps.
again
um,
in everything he did.
Which is hilarious that he wrote so much with John Byrne in those early days.
Oh,
It was like,
I
we
think
could-
the two of them got along just fine.
No, I know. That's it's like, John, you tie him up. I'll make them mentally slaves. Yeah, that'll work.
but so yeah, I really enjoyed Mockingbird, and in part I enjoyed it because I knew that I was going to have a definitive bite-sized experience.
Yeah.
I understood that by the time I got to the end of issue 8, it was going to be done. That I still might have left that, like I do any number of pieces of media, being like, gosh, I wish I would have more, but still being satisfied for what I consumed.
I think, yeah, I agree with you completely in that. We were at Emerald City this year, and Kirbytron was like, I'm going to stand in line to meet Robert Kirkman, and when I get up to him, I'm going to be like, can you ever let anything die, or must you beat every last fucking ounce of viscera out of every, like, can't you just let it die? And I'm definitely a fan of, this comes up when I talk to friends about Firefly, right? It's like, oh, we should have gotten more. And I'm like, no, you got one really good season. You never had to watch it decline. You never had to watch Joss Whedon do the fucking stupid shit where he does, where all of a sudden he forgets what fucking being a good writer is.
It's funny
Like,
because there are unfilmed scripts that have leaked that are fucking awful.
awful. Of course there are. Of course there are. Of course there are. All right. And that's why one season of Firefly is perfect. Yeah, you want more. That's good. That's good. Go out and write fan fiction about it, man. Write your own fucking script
Go out
for it.
and be inspired to write the next great thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is media can take that place in your life where you can be really moved by something, and it can inspire you to do something. Don't fucking wait to be fed that. Right. And that's what I liked about Mockingbird is I think that it is the right length, although I have no fucking context for what's going on vis-a-vis
The Phantoms.
via Hawkeye and the Hulk and shit, because I don't read Marvel anymore.
Civil War
because
II.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
but
is
you didn't
bullshit.
really. I feel like you didn't need to.
No,
know.
I don't
Like,
think you'd. I mean, it's a thing because that inner comic book nerd is in there going, well, now we got to find out what happens with that. And I'm going, no, you don't. It's okay. No, you don't. The other comic book I'm reading is called Kaiju Max, which is about an island super prison for fucking kaiju monsters. And yeah, that, I'm like, we could just read that and that'll be fun and interesting. It's like Oz with fucking Godzilla. Yeah, I'm totally fucking into that, right? I don't need to know what happened with Hawkeye and Hulk because I have Mercorgis. Really, do we need anything else? Do we need, I ask you, does...
We need flying corgis so that there will be corgis of the land, sea, and sky.
That's true. Okay. That's true. But I am going to say that that's definitely a pinnacle of pop culture is Mercorgis.
Yeah, that was a little weird. I don't really know where that came from or where to take it.
I love that at a certain point in this book, it just becomes like, here's Mockingbird and a shit ton of corgis.
Yeah, they definitely felt like there was a certain point in this series where Chelsea Cain just kind of gave up and was like, I'm just going to do whatever.
But I think that makes it a lot of fun.
Like, okay. Answer me this. Why is Keith Baker in this series? He invented Eberron.
I have no idea why anything is in this series, but that's, I think, one of the things I love about it.
On the boat with the NerdCon. Keith Baker is there.
There's a bunch of fucking
They call him
people.
out a bunch of times.
Maybe Chelsea Cain knows him personally, and she was just.
I have to admit, like, there's a bunch of people who are actual people who are called out by name in this book, and I'm like, Chelsea Cain, did you just put all your friends in this comic book?
Why not?
Why the fuck not?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, there's a certain point where she's just like, I'm just gonna do this because I feel like it.
I think that's awesome, though. I think one of my least favorite things, and I've talked about this, I think that superhero comics have a very, very hard time setting appropriate stakes. And so many times it's like, the stakes are everything. They're higher than they've ever been before. And I'm like, wait a minute, Marvel, I'm sorry, but I can remember when the stakes were literally everything in existence. All right. You can literally set the bar no fucking higher. What, are you going to go back in time and be like, nothing ever existed? Because that's pretty
what
much
they
the same
did in
fucking,
their last thing.
Yeah. It's like once you have set the bar at everything that ever existed, that's it. The stakes can literally be no higher. So
yeah, and they've done that at least a couple of times.
No, they've done it several times. And it's kind of like, I don't care. I don't need those stakes.
They keep inventing greater everythings.
Well, it's Dragon Ball Z syndrome, which is what happens when you need to be bigger, better, faster, stronger. It's eventually it's like, how about I have a good fucking idea. Check this. This is radical. All right. Why not write good fucking stories instead?
That would be nice.
This is crazy. This is a fucking crazy thought.
But I think, the one thing I want to say in fairness to some of that is I think what ends up happening is that you get a progressive generations. I use that term loosely because some of these guys are in the same age range. They just are the next group who happen to come in, who want to do their spin on, I grew up with Crisis on Infinite Earths, so I'm going to do my version of it. Now, of course, sometimes companies go crazy and they're like, Grant Morrison, why don't you just do it 4 times for us? Other times, I think what happens is that you get, bald guy. He's been around forever. Brian Michael Bendis. You get Bendis, Brubaker, and those guys. They decide to do their version of it, and then you get Fraction or Millar. They do Civil War. And then you get Fraction, Remender, and those guys, and they're like, hey, we've got one that's going to be like weird and trippy and like multidimensional, and then they do theirs. And now you got the current group who are there and who are like, well, we're going to do this other one, and it's going to be like this one, but it's going to be different, but it's going to be the same, right? And then of course it's also done to serve. Like the one thing I think that happens in the events, especially the really big ones, is they're also meant to serve some corporate master agenda type things. Like, we want you to make the Inhumans important,
right? Because
we're in a pissing match with Fox, and ultimately we're going to make a lot more money off of the movie stuff than we are these comics. So now editorial edict is making humans important.
Right, and I agree.
But then by the time those narrative beats resolve, the real life things that led to those weird editorial edicts have completely changed. Like, they're not even going to be Inhuman movies now. They're going to be TV shows. And now basically it seems like, Marvel's done throwing a pissing match over the X-Men thing. And they're like, well, you can kind of do your thing. That's fine. And so now they're like, well, the X-Men can come back. But they just spent the last 3 years being like, X-Men bad and Humans good. And you're just like, ugh.
And so I think this is a very valid point. I think you make a good point. But my response to that point is just do something else. You don't have to write. It's to me, I understand that people like, man, hold on. Let me just finish. Let me just get this out. I understand that there's people. I'm going
to let you finish.
Okay. Thanks, Kanye. I think, as somebody that has written before and as somebody that is a pop culture junkie, I understand the drive to be like, oh, I want to tell my own Dark Phoenix story, or I want to tell my own Crisis on Infinite Earths. But my advice to that person would be like, don't fucking do that. Do something different instead. Right? Or lobby to have your own pocket fucking universe where you can do whatever you want so that you don't have to return it to a status quo. Right? Like, you want to fucking tell Cosmic Cube Saga or Infinity Gem Saga and you want Thanos to win? Fucking lobby Marvel to be like, hey, just give me this fucking out of continuity 12-issue series and let me do my thing with it.
Right.
Well,
because they did that with Old Man Logan, right?
Well, and that's the thing, right? I appreciate that Old Man Logan, while I didn't like parts of it was its own thing. So you could do whatever the fuck you wanted with it. I think we need to see more of that. Like, if you want to tell that story, that's fine. Stop trying to shoehorn them into the mainstream continuity.
There was
because
no reason to introduce Old Man Logan into the 616.
Yes, absolutely. He serves no purpose there. It's the same thing as when you brought in, it's like, oh, you know, it'd be edgy if we brought in fucking Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler. And it's like, well, are you doing that to serve a purpose, or are you doing that because you wanted to kill Nightcrawler and you need to have a Nightcrawler on the fucking team?
That one I think actually did serve a purpose.
Well, and that's fair. I've heard better things. I've heard okay things about it, but I don't do superhero comics anymore, and I especially don't do X-Men because Jesus Christ.
It was part of Remender's Uncanny X-Force run that we read the beginning of.
Right, which is good.
And it was really good. I'll just say that in its defense. But I do want to get a word in edgewise here. And it's our reunion episode. I have to say my catchphrase.
Oh, God.
I had misgivings about this book.
Yeah.
Specifically, I had about 3 things that really bugged me about this work, and the stake setting is one of them.
Okay.
Because I think that you can do what you were saying, Joe, which is set the stakes too high, or try and set them too high. And I think you can do the opposite, which is one of the problems I had with this book, is that I didn't feel like there were any stakes.
Yeah, see, but that's what I liked about it.
The book felt bland to me because I didn't feel like anything was at stake or anything that really mattered. It was just a succession of scenes for Mockingbird to deliver a patter in, and then some stuff to kind of happen.
Oh, dear. You see, I'm sorry. I understand you've got like brain damage or something. Yeah, this book is competency porn. This book is to basically be like, Mockingbird, also awesome.
Yeah.
See all the ways in which she's awesome. See the ways that it's hilarious that she's awesome. See the ways in which she pithily acknowledges that, hey, just like all the other people in the Marvel Universe, she's in fact awesome.
And that's fine when I see her doing awesome things. I don't really feel like I see her doing awesome things. Feel like I see her doing things with the cheat codes on, where it's like, take no damage, infinite bullets, easily stroll your way through every situation.
But that's the whole point. But I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying is that we have read plenty of comics where, you know, Wolverine goes through something, oh, he gets bullet shot at him, which have no fucking stakes attached because the guy's
Yeah, and that's fucking boring.
But, well, okay.
Okay, what I'm saying here is, for competency porn to work, it's not that the hero needs to win trivially, it's that they need to win trivially against something that feels legitimately like it should be difficult and challenging, and they go, actually, no, I'm so fucking awesome, I can take your difficult challenge, and I can just fucking piss.
No, I think there's merit to the whole idea of somebody that's like, I am fucking good at my job. This is how good I am at my job. All this shit is trivial to me. Right?
Well, it's like, okay, what challenges does she actually go up against? A guy in a horse mask who runs away from her?
That's what I like about this book, is that there are no stakes. It's about her. It's about her talking.
Yeah, it's really a character piece about her.
Yeah, it's a fucking character piece.
And that's fine. And I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm saying I didn't feel engaged with it because I didn't feel like it was doing anything. And you know me, like, I'm a plot whore. I want there to be twists and, oh my God, crazy things are happening, and let's deliver a long speech about this really arcane thing about the Marvel Universe, and oh my God.
I mean, it was The Spire.
Thank you. That's exactly the point I'm making.
Yeah, well, but I didn't think The Spire was very good.
And I don't think that I'm not gonna be baited by you. Because this wasn't bad. I just found it kind of bland and not terribly engaging. I mean, it was a fun, lighthearted character piece, but, you know, I mean, it felt ephemeral to me.
But that's what I want more of. I really I'm so fucking tired of oh my God, Mockingbird throws herself up against this and she's defeated and she has to fight. It's like, not everything has to be Venom, right?
Right,
like,
and that actually gets into my second point, which is that you can get more of this. You can get a lot more of this because they've been churning out a lot of books with female lead characters that have exactly this tone. You've got Hellcat, you've got Spider-Woman, you've got the recent Batgirl of Burnside, to a certain extent Gwenpool, Squirrel Girl. Like, you have all of these very, like, kind of lighthearted, ephemeral character pieces with female-led characters where there's not really anything at stake, and they all feel very samey.
But I don't think.
And I was reading this thing that actually made a really good point, in my opinion, about how you never get these sort of books with male lead characters.
Do you never get these kinds of books with male characters?
I mean, I think that's a valid point.
That,
I don't know.
that there's nothing wrong with these books per se.
Well, you don't get
except insofar as there are so many of them, and it feels like it's this weird trap where it's like, oh, are you going to have a female-led book? Well, it has to be sort of lighthearted and slice of life with no real stakes.
See, but this is the thing, right?
I don't. Yeah.
I think, and this is why that doesn't bother me. I agree. I think there are no mainstream like male superhero characters that have these kinds of stories told
Hawkeye?
about them.
Yeah, but
I mean, I guess
Hawkeye's
Hawkeye.
like, he gets deafened and people get murdered,
But I
and
think
there's
there
crime
are
syndicates
stakes
and
there.
the conspiracy. Like, there are definitely stakes in that book.
I think the reason I don't like, I really like Squirrel Girl. It's one of the few Marvel books that I actually give a shit about.
It's a
Howard
great,
the Duck, I
well-written
think,
book.
is very similar. I think Howard the Duck doesn't really have any stakes.
Deadpool.
But
Deadpool has been dark and stake laden.
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah,
I mean,
because they keep
but there
trying
have
to-
been versions of it that
Yeah,
are kind of
where
this
there was
in
the thing.
tone. I'm just
But
trying to establish.
The thing is, the thing is this. I enjoy Squirrel Girl. I enjoyed Mockingbird because it's like popcorn. I can sit down and eat a bowl of popcorn, and it's not going to sit heavily on me. It's something I can just kind of do without thinking about it, right? And the reason I enjoy it more is because I feel like back when I was reading superhero comics, when I look at shit, the past 7 years, 8 years of superhero comics where you have shit like Final Crisis and Civil War and fucking the Black Lantern fucking thing and all this shit. It's like I'm being told, it's like Marvel's like, hey, Joe, we're going to take you out to a fucking fine dining restaurant. And where they're really taking me is to fucking Guy Fieri's restaurant. And I don't want to fucking go to Flavortown, all right? I don't want fucking, like, seriously, right? If you tell me you're going to take me to fucking French Laundry, take me to fucking French Laundry. But I don't get French Laundry. I get the fucking shitty, like burger joint on the corner where the fucking guy is like scratching his ass while he's cooking the
But
burger.
Joe, when you're at Olive Garden, you're family.
No, I'm not family, all right? Nobody is family. And stop appropriating my culture, Olive Garden, all right? Fuck you. I think I think that it would be interesting to see. I would love a Wolverine book that was like this, where it was just Wolverine fucking like,
you just literally saying that made me think about something. There are two components here that I think that are why this there might be some explanation. One is there's we were all familiar with free market capitalism. Give the market what it wants. If people want to be experiencing these characters in this way, that might explain why there's a high propensity for it. But the fact that it happens with female characters could be a disturbing trend, except for part two. We have tons of male-led books that go on for really long periods of time that can afford to break into these moments of levity and then back to the quote-unquote big action. The female characters do get involved in that sometimes, but those are the books where they get to basically get bloodied, broken, bruised, smashed apart. But like Joss Whedon in The Astonishing X-Men, there were moments of levity in that book where you basically, it's like, where it's like X-Men or Wolverine's like beer, or like I think about Brian Michael Bendis's Secret Avengers, where there's an entire dialogue where they're sitting at the table and Spider-Man's like, how are you even here, Logan? He's like, oh, my superpower, I'm on multiple teams, that's my superpower.
New Avengers.
No. Yes. No.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. But
doesn't matter.
Minor quibble.
Anyway,
sometimes I'm starkly reminded of the fact that we are all comic book geeks.
But I feel like all that to say is that I feel like we don't see a book dedicated to these levitous moments because these characters get books that flesh out who they are, what they do, how they do it. And like there have been really successful Spider-Man single issues where it's like, here's a day where Peter Parker just gets it all right. He catches the bad guy, he does the thing, he brings Mary Jane flowers. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, some days it's actually pretty damn cool to be Spider-Man. And then I think about also like the Sinister, or not the
Superior Foes
of Spider-Man. Which I think there's been a few books like that where it's kind of like,
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, and that's
there
like
weren't
that's
really
lighthearted and fun, but there's still stakes. Like they get into trouble. There's threats and challenges that they
But
overcome.
they're very
Okay,
sitcom.
Then let's go with the
comedy.
next one that I had on my list. Next
Sure.
Wave. Did you really spend any time in that book being
Oh,
like,
God,
oh gosh, Machine Man's
that's
about to get
actually
beat up?
true.
Like, I never thought that they were in danger. I didn't really think that
Yeah.
there were ever stakes. Yet I'm pretty sure you'd put that on the list of one of your favorite comic books of all time. True?
That is one of my favorite comic books of all time. But again, I still feel like there was some threat. Like they got beat up and had to
there
come
was
back from that.
I mean, by Forbush, man. I mean,
Like,
come on.
yeah.
What's the Dormammu?
They get
It's
legitimately menaced by Forbush, man.
But I also think that this book had those moments. I think that when I think that those last few issues when she's on the ship, she's having to deal with her feelings for Clint, and she's having to deal with the fact that he's a murderer, and when she was in the same position, he fucking alienated her. And I think that's a stake. It's not a fucking universe ending stake, no, but it's about her. And it's about her character, and it's about how she has a connection to somebody and how she went through this thing with them, and about partially how her personality doesn't really allow her to get into that. I think that's a fucking stake.
I also think that we got to keep in mind that there are two arcs, right? So there is a stake in the first 5 issues. There's that biological virus component. So that's what she's racing against. And part of the lightheartedness about it is that no one else necessarily thinks it's a stake, but she's like, no, this is really important. And they do all this stuff, and she breaks through the thing, and they go through all this stuff, and then they get to the end, and she's just like, actually, the best way to fix this is to literally do nothing.
Yeah, and I thought the last issue with Spider-Man and Howard the Duck, where they were running around through the S.H.I.E.L.D. base, like that was probably my favorite issue of this run.
Just because Spider-Man was in it.
Miles Morales did it. There's this.
What does he have, like chicken pox or something?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
I do like
and
to
interesting.
see, yeah, and on the page where he's in the gown and then he's trying to put on a spider suit, and they're both Howard the Duck and Mockingbird are looking at him. He's like, "Can I get a minute? Just a second, please."
And I also liked Howard the Duck's line about it's like, oh, this is like chest worm or whatever, or chest rice or something. He's like, it's a disease that birds get. Not me though.
Actually, my favorite exchange here is she's broken into the room. She's with Spider-Man and Howard the Duck, and she's like, they're not zombie Spider-Man. They're research cadavers. S.H.I.E.L.D. injected them with a virus, and they reanimated. And he's like, so zombies. And then Howard the Duck's in the corner being like, I'm so feeling some deep despair here, guys. And then Mockingbird says, 20,000 Americans donate their bodies to science every year. Have you ever wondered where all those bodies end up? And Miles Morales goes, oh my God, is that where Sloppy Joes come from? And she's like, what? No. Like, it's so, and I think that's so one of the things that I have traditionally liked about anime or certain series of anime, like Excel Saga, for instance, is like the interjection of the random, where like the ludicrous becomes so common, like that it's like, because I think at its heart, this is a competency point, and it really is meant to be like, if you stripped away the humor and the weird, not outlandish, but there's a word for that, surreal. Thank you. If you strip the surreal elements, this is at its heart supposed to be kind of, Mockingbird, aka Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Like lower stakes, more about kind of just general S.H.I.E.L.D. doery. But then it's changed into something else by adding those other elements, and I think that's why I like it so much, because it's like she's in the Hellfire Club and she's just doing a thing. It's like, okay, that's the kind of thing that she'd be brought in to do, but she's in this like weird like latex getup thing, and then there's this other guy, and there's like this thing, but then there's like the humor is meant to drive it more, and it's really hurting my brain, because I feel like there are male-centric versions of these books, and I have some of them, but I couldn't tell you what they are off the top of my head. Barry Ween is like a version of this, but not with superheroes, right? But it's like there's no stakes. He never gets hurt, not really. Although there's
he gets emotionally hurt all the time.
A couple times, but not in the initial book, right? Like that.
Yeah, okay. The first book where it's just kind of like it's an adventure, and then it's another unconnected adventure.
So I feel like, so I guess what I'm saying is that you could get Mockingbird there too.
Yeah,
or you don't need to, because this character, like so many female characters in superheroes, has been so emotionally and physically abused. We don't need another story about that part.
And I think that's where I kind of come in, is that I think for me, the value in this story is that this is the story of a woman character that has been beaten the shit out of. She's been fridged. And it's basically her being like, yeah, now I get to be the badass. And the reason there are no stakes is because I am bigger than those stakes. I think that the stakes here are largely emotional, which I think is interesting. But the thing is that I don't really need that. I like slice of life. I think that I love superhero slice of life because I think that that's one thing that gets neglected. Everything in a superhero's life has to be fucking bombastic and fucking oh my god, they kidnapped your entire family and they're gonna turn them into fucking dog food if you don't catch them right now. And it's like, do we need that? Like, wouldn't it be cool to read like a 6-issue series where Wolverine was just doing what Wolverine does when he isn't being the best he is?
Which I think they've done, but also that's like why I like Little Gotham so much, because it was just kind of like,
yeah,
yay.
it's because it's fun and there's not really anything.
But I was just thinking about it's been a few months now, but like one of the most talked about scenes in Batman for a long time was in the main book, the boys, Damian and Todd, Jason Todd and Dick Grayson, basically I think they bet Bruce Wayne something. They bet Batman something. And basically the whole thing is that if he loses, they have to go get hamburgers together. And he was like, yeah, okay, fine. And they're like, no, we have to go out together without costumes and get hamburgers together. So there's this entire like 2-page spread of Bruce Wayne in a suit with those guys dressed up however they dress up in their civvies getting a hamburger, and he's kind of like, this is actually kind of nice. And they're like, and like at one point Jason Todd's like, see, I told you, like, and all this stuff, and they're fighting.
Yeah.
But it's like yeah, Batman as father, which of course I had mentioned explicitly in Little Gotham as being one of the things that I loved about that series, because I think that's
dad.
Yeah, the bad dad.
Yeah.
And so
look at fucking All-Star Superman. 90% of that story is there's no stakes. It's just an exploration of him. It's him being Superman.
No, but there is a stake that's set very early on and permeates that entire
but
book.
that only comes into effect in the last fucking issue.
No, that is throughout the entire series.
It's the impetus for the story, but it doesn't affect him to the point where it makes anything difficult for him.
Yes, it does.
What?
Did you not read that book?
Yeah, it does impact him.
When? What does it make?
Like the entire thrust of the story is that he knows that he's dying,
yeah,
and he has to do certain things before he goes, and it is his race against time to do all the things that he has to do before he dies.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we read the same fucking comic book? Because there's no fucking race against time. He fucking gets the shit done. He's doing it almost leisurely.
Whatever.
Yeah, there's no fucking stress in that book at all. The only reason that's there is because it gives Grant Morrison the excuse to explore this character in these very specific ways.
Is if there was literally a clock at the top of every page counting down.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know that I feel it's that particularly pressing. I mean, I agree with you that the stakes are set, but I also agree with you that's not
yes, there are stakes, but they're not. They are not omnipresent in the story.
Yeah.
Superman isn't talking about how he's fucking dying in every issue.
I guess
he gives Lois the powers. He's like, I wanted you to experience what it was like to be me. He's like, he's doing these things, but he's doing them at his own fucking pace.
No, he's doing them with the knowledge that there's not going to be a later for him to do these things. So
but
he has to do them.
But I think as a reader, I think here's what I would say personally is that I think that you walk into certain stories knowing that the stakes are mitigated by extenuating circumstances. So, for instance, it's All-Star Superman, so even if Superman dies, it doesn't really mean anything. One. Two, that in general, Superman can't or doesn't die. So, most likely, and this is what happened to me, you walk into that story being like, oh, interesting, this is the premise. I wonder how he overcomes it. Or I wonder what he does while under the effect of this story. But I don't find myself reading it being like, holy shit, is he going to die? Whereas I can't remember what movie I was watching. But I was like, oh, no problem. These are the guys who are going to live. These are the ones who are going to die. And then sure as shit, like halfway through, I'm like, oh, damn, like nobody's going to live. Holy crap. Like, and I wasn't expecting it. It changed the tone of the stakes for me. I didn't, I lost that assumption of safety.
Was it Rogue One?
No.
I did have that moment during Rogue One, but no, I think that those aren't stakes. Because that it is set up as an inevitability in like the beginning of the fucking story. It's inevitable. It is inexorable. But I think that So those remove the stakes because it's not a question of like, will he escape death? And at no point is the question raised, will he do all these things that he needs to do? Because literally every time it comes up, they're like, oh yeah, you do all these things, which kind of fucking takes the drama out of it. When you're going to have all these fucking people that are like traveling through time and they're like, oh yeah, Superman dies, but before he does all this crazy shit and it's awesome. No, like that is a story that is an examination of a character. You're seeing him at his best. You're seeing what drives him. You're seeing all these great things.
But he still has something to push against.
But he has literally nothing to lose because he knows that it's inevitable that he's going to die. And he doesn't fucking die. Spoilers. He fucking lives in the sun. So even then, it's not a fucking issue, is it? Yeah. Checkmate, Toby.
No. Just no. On every level, no.
On all the levels, yes.
Suffice it to say, coming back to Mockingbird,
yes, please.
That I think it's safe to say clearly the book has a certain kind of tone. And that will appeal more to some people than others. People who have hearts will like it. People who are stone cold robots with no feelings will not.
From the future.
No. From the
give
future.
Credit where credit is due.
No, but I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? Like different strokes for different folks. I think particularly for me, what I see in this book and find equally hilarious about the kinds of people who get frustrated about it, not in the sense of not liking the story, but like in social.
Yes.
Was of course the people who were just outraged by her wearing a shirt that's like, tell me about my feminine agenda.
And that's the thing that fucking galls me is the people who aren't criticizing it because of anything that's in the book.
No,
they're criticizing it because of the cover of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and even then, so there are a couple of moments in this book where, for the most part, the men act stupid and she does not. And so, first of all, it's like, I'm sorry, everybody, but let's be honest. That's probably fair.
It's like, if you were made uncomfortable about that, maybe you should ask why that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
ask yourself why you're okay with it happening to the fucking, with women being treated
because there's
that
the
way.
one, I can't remember what the context is, but it's like vignettes across like, bad ideas or whatever. And it's like the guy and the lady sitting and the guy's like, so this is a high interest loan that will cause this thing. And the woman's like, so isn't this going to like destabilize the markets or whatever? And then the guys and the broker's like, it'll let you buy a big damn house. And the guy's like, sounds good. Like,
yep.
And then like, I'm like, and I could see like, oh, some like wound too tight somebody who's just like, oh my gosh, all the men are being mocked in this book. Being like, this book is insulting to men. And it's like, but the power dynamic here is that you can literally put this book down and pick up a million different books where the women are the one who get the shit kicked out of them, thrown into a ravine or anything else at the worst end of it, right?
Right.
Sexually assaulted, abused, raped women, let's name it. And all the men are, happy, pretty, gung-ho, whatever. And at its most moderate, they're hopefully treated with equal competency and skill as their male counterparts. Like we make fun, like the general trend is that like, you make fun of women constantly. So why not have there be a book where it's like, men, am I right? And what's hilarious about that is that I'm a man and I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like if I had a guy being there like, you could buy a giant house, I'd be like, well, that sounds like a really bad idea, but it'll take at least 3 years to catch up with me. Maybe.
Yeah, right. I have an interesting story along those lines. Somebody I know, not going to mention names, and it certainly wasn't me, was filing his taxes this year. And he didn't file for about 3 weeks because he was considering, even though he had recently been married, filing separately and with single status because his return would be far, far bigger. And he had to convince himself that committing tax fraud was probably not the best way to go.
They'll find you eventually.
So, yeah.
Well, the way the government's being run right now, they maybe won't.
Not.
Yeah, right. That person should have taken advantage of the chaos.
See, the problem is that when it comes to that particular issue, you can't rely on that because whoever comes in 12 years from now and hires a bunch of really competent accountants, those guys will go back that far and be like, remember that time when it wasn't being run well? I bet there's a lot of money to be found there. Let's start looking. No statute of limitations on tax fraud.
Nope.
What about texts don't really quite know what you're doing and so filled in things incorrectly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, but saying that you weren't married when you most certainly were, that's a
Well, I
little
mean, how
bit-
married are you really?
Yeah, that's true.
I would love
We
to
only-
know that person's specific financial situations because there's very few scenarios in which that actually would have played out that way. I think.
Well, the person was single with a child.
So claiming
And-
head of household and all that.
Yeah, and all that stuff. It was a significantly bigger.
Anyway,
Also, that person's wife would have gotten a significantly bigger. Well, yeah. Anyways, don't edit that out.
So
That's really the people need to know that. Edit that part out, but not this part.
okay.
art.
Yeah, that was going to be my point number 3. I like it in the abstract, but like if you just show me a panel, I'm like, that's cool. I like that. When it comes to stringing all the panels together, I'm like, this is weirdly static and these panels don't flow together in quite the way that I want them to. And there's a specific
that.
there was
I
a
didn't get
specific
that.
transition when she meets Hawkeye down in the undersea lab and she's wearing a wetsuit, and then she takes the wetsuit off and she's wearing a different outfit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually show her like moving to take it off or anything. She's just kind of wearing it, and then
Yeah,
she's
but that's-
not.
A la James Bond.
Yeah, but I mean,
But it was just like this really sudden transition, and like throughout this book, like the transitions felt really jumpy.
What's interesting about that is that I think that's intense because like I was just happened before my iPad decided to crash. There's like great motion and panel transitions where it's like they're fighting and then they're fighting and they're fighting. So it's like it's clearly that in my mind, Kate, whose last name I'm going to butcher, so I'm not going to say it, has capacity. I took almost every single type of that transition you're referring to, Tobiah, as A, intentional, and B, almost genuinely comedic, right? Like,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
whoop, whoop, kind of like meant to tweak your nose a little bit to make you pay attention to the fact that like this, something's changed. Can you tell what's changed? Ha 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 ha. So I found those moments charming. They reminded me of
So you're pointing at issue number 5,
who's not her.
who's Ibrahim Moustafa.
No. Let me see if I can find other scenes where I feel like there's action happening.
Yeah, and I'm pointing at issue number 4. That's definitely Kate, last name redacted. So I'm so sorry to that artist.
Last name redacted.
As somebody who frequently gets his name said wrong, I feel your pain.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm finding other things, but none of them are as dramatic as that. But like here.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, like, I'm not saying that it's bad art, just the opposite. I think it's really good, but they're like the flow of panels and the way that the characters are posed sometimes feels weirdly static to me.
Yeah, and I guess I'm saying that, and I guess I'm trying to convince you, and I'm not quite sure I understand why. I'm trying to that it's intentional and that should make a difference. But ultimately, if you find it jarring or discombobulating, then you find jarring or discombobulating. But
Yeah, I mean, just like in issue 4 when she's doing this like weird sidekick, like it just looks awkwardly posed. Like there's no way that you could kick somebody that way with any kind of strength behind it.
behind you, that's a mule kick.
Hold on.
Yeah, but like her fucking hips are like completely square, and she's like, I don't know, she's like, there's no way that she could have done that without her literally running into her foot.
Well,
Guys.
I think that's a part of it, and B, she's super strong, so she doesn't have to exert a lot of force.
Guys, I have closure on the name. Niemczyk.
Niemczyk.
Thank you, Siri. Is it Siri?
No, it's YouTube. But I just want to say that's what I said.
That is
Yeah.
what you said.
Kate Niemczyk.
No, I understand. It does look a little awkward. I didn't find that particularly jarring.
I thought it
But-
was. I enjoyed it. I liked show favorite Ibrahim Moustafa did a fill-in issue,
Yeah, issue number 5.
which was.
To be fair, he
tasty.
was working on the Kate Niemczyk problem, so
That's
he
true.
didn't- He didn't hear the two of us actually talk about that. But
Oh, I'm sorry. I
no,
totally
it's
missed
fine.
that.
I'm saying that it was
I like
appropriate that you did that.
him because I've talked about James Bond with him.
Yeah, no, he's a great dude and a great artist. And like Kate Niemczyk's art, again, like I like it. I like that thick line work style. It's just there are some parts of it that didn't work for me.
One of the things that I was impressed with her style, which this could be awkward to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I felt like she did a good job of presenting Mockingbird in particular as someone who is very feminine and even sexual, but didn't sexualize her.
No, she's completely fabulous throughout the entire series.
You know, because they're like, she's in a bondage outfit, and, you know, in a cartoony sort of way, you're like, hey, you know, that's a lady in a bondage outfit. But I didn't think that it was drawn in a particularly provocative way. Even the Ask Me About My Feminist Agenda cover, you know, it's like, well, clearly she's a lady. She has lady parts. She's probably confident in her sexualness. But I didn't feel like it was like, you know, oh, she's bending over and provocatively licking the cusp of her coffee cup while she asks you to ask her about sex.
By and large, the artwork was cartoonish enough that, it didn't feel like it was supposed to be titillating. Like she's obviously a very beautiful woman. She's presented as very fabulous throughout the series. You know, her fucking hair is on fire in every single fucking panel of every page.
That's her real superpower.
Yeah. I mean, I dare you to go deep sea diving and have your hair still do whatever the fuck it is her hair does.
On
like she's able to be sexy without feeling sexualized in that kind of.
That's weird. I could have sworn I just said that.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm listening to your words and I'm repeating them back to you to show that I'm paying attention.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody has touched on the point that I really feel that the art allowed her to be really sexy without being sexual.
Oh, interesting. You know, I hear what you're saying.
I really like the art. I thought it tied the story together. I like the quick change thing because I think that it calls to mind a very specific kind of humor where it's like, and also my view on time change is unless it's jarring, which I guess is a subjective thing. Like that gutter, man, that's why it's there. Like that how much time has passed there? You don't know. Like you assume from context clues what's going on there. But like, I think that it very much in the way that turning a page out of a book progresses time, when you pass over the gutter and you go to the next panel, you have to kind of put it together. And sometimes it works for you and sometimes it doesn't. It does not change the fact that Toby is wrong.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say Archer as one of the things that I felt like
this is very much felt a lot like Archer, which is one of the things I liked about it.
Not nearly as gratuitously vulgar.
No.
Which did you know that came back this week, right?
Yes.
I haven't watched it yet.
I'm like 2 whole seasons behind.
I'm a season behind.
Joe, is there anything that you're not a season behind on?
No, absolutely not. But I will say,
well, there's gotta be things that are done that you're not a season behind on.
No, that's true. I've watched Stranger Things.
There you go. See?
But have you watched Jessica Jones?
No, not yet. I will. You know, I feel like I might have a bunch of time to myself coming up where I can fucking binge all this shit.
And instead you're just gonna play Mass Effect.
No, I'll get it done. I have goals
now with more
myself.
facial animations.
I haven't found the facial animations to be that. I actually really enjoy it. I don't understand what the hype was about.
No. I mean, there's a few specific instances that I ran
weird.
into
that
you're kind of like, well, that's kind of strange. But no, in general, I think if no one had ever said anything, most people would be like, okay. But it is hard though to have watched something like Horizon Zero Dawn and then be like, oh,
yeah.
Anyway,
but everything
that's
else
because
on
that game
is
is perfect on every
crazy,
level.
Beautiful. You leave fucking footprints in the goddamn sand in Mass Effect Andromeda. Like, you will be walking through the sand and you can see the footsteps of yourself and your crew.
You leave footsteps in history in Horizon.
Well, you do it in Andromeda too, because you're exploring a whole new fucking galaxy. Anyways.
Colors are also awesome. I think the colors also help to pop out the heavy line work style.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, to the extent that anybody listens to us as far as determining what to read next, I think that, if you like, lighthearted humor, kind of a spy-ish bent versus more or less of a superhero bent, then this is a good book. I mean,
yeah. I think you should read it if you enjoy having fun when you read superhero comics. I think you should read it if you want to say fuck you to those people, the kind of people that complain about Johnny Storm being black, or that women have any role in comics other than as fucking arm candy or as plot devices.
Well, and I think the thing that I always want to say about that is that it's not as though, as far as I've been able to tell, you are suffering any diminishment of the ability to get your hands on any of that other stuff.
No. And
I'm pretty sure I can go still pick up a book where Captain America's like kicking ass. Well, I mean, he's a Nazi right now, but hey,
Well, and I
Although
think,
in current events, as much as Nick Spencer has proved his propensity to be an asshat on Twitter, he can write a good fucking Captain America, and the most recent episode pays off a lot of those themes for me.
Yeah.
but it's not. Well, that's a whole other conversation. But it's just, just reading what he's done with the Falcon and some of the other things, I just want nothing to do with it, which is my original stance. I think it hasn't changed.
That's fair.
I stand by what I've said before. So
I don't want to get too much into that because it's not the book that we read, so
No,
I don't want to
absolutely.
spoil it on the mics, but we can talk about it later.
I think that one of the big problems with people complaining about that is that if your ego is so fragile that you feel diminished by any female character being promoted to the forefront, then perhaps the problem is not with the media, but with yourself. And if you can't see that, maybe you should take 2 giant steps back and go fuck yourself. Because it's not society's job to cater to your whim when your whim has been catered to for fucking the last, I don't know, forever, for fucking ever. That's
Well,
the
and
last.
unfortunately, the comic book industry or the comic book fandom is, and I'll say this with great authority as someone who worked in comics for a long time, especially long enough to notice this particular thing is there are tons of people who will talk a big game and then will turn around and throw that $4 on the counter and walk off with the next book.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where it's like, don't get me wrong, like I don't want to go through a period of time without certain kinds of comics, which is ironic because I'm so far behind that I basically have. But if you really want to see these changes, both as someone who may be more liberal or progressive or whatever, or someone who may be more conservative, like the biggest, vote you can do is pay for the stuff that meets your values and don't pay for the stuff that doesn't. And frankly, what I found was that a lot of the people who weren't willing to do that were completionist collector types who were so like, I have to have every issue because one day maybe. And it's like, but you're literally saying that your economic interests are so much more important than your cultural, social interests, then really should you even be commenting? Because basically what you're saying is, I just need to make sure that this keeps going. I really shouldn't care how it keeps going so that I can continue my collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've always been off in the political hinterlands, so I, who knows what I know. But it's just always been like, why care so much? Like, there are so many people writing comic books where, I mean, if I literally wanted to tomorrow, I could go out and buy like 50 pounds worth of comics where it's like, girls in bikinis, guys with machine guns, everyone dies except for the hero, and then he gets fucked. Like,
yeah,
like
no,
I really,
absolutely.
The Zenescope comics continues to be a thing.
yeah, and doing quite well. Grimm Fairy Tales by itself apparently pulls in a ridiculous amount of money.
Oh,
yes,
sure.
and all the power in the world to them. They're doing their thing. That's great.
Yeah.
I can go to the other side of the comic book store and find my radical trans feminist books.
Yeah, which is
there is room under the sun for all things. There's no reason why you need to go out and try and destroy a book because you don't like what's in it.
Well, absolutely, unless you're trying to take somebody down to build yourself up, in which case, see my previous comments. Like, seriously.
But there's no more amazing stories starring Johnny Blaze. Because all the last ones were so good. Oh, wait.
And on that note...
do we have anything else that needs to be said about Mockingbird, or can we wrap things up for tonight?
I think we're good for tonight.
It's good to be back.
Good to be back. What's our next book? Oh, yes.
It's Joe's pick.
I can't remember. Oh, fuck!
It's the first book
Immortal
that I
Iron
ever
Fist.
pitched.
Yeah, it's the Immortal Iron Fist.
By Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker.
By Fraction and Brubaker.
With David Aja.
With art, and we're going to do...
And I think Matt Hollingsworth on colors.
The first 16 issues?
Yeah.
And we're going to have a special guest.
Ooh.
Well, I'm hoping we'll have a special guest. I'm in the work. It's in the works.
Me?
No, you're a regular.
Oh.
It's going to be Aisha, the cat.
Aisha the cat's on every episode. I just edit her out.
Yeah, that's fair. She doesn't really contribute much.
Except with love.
Well, that's true. All right.
Well, next week, Iron Fist.
Yep.
Iron Fist.
Bye, everybody.
We're back.
Bye.
This has been a production of View from the Gutters. This episode was edited by Tobiah Panship. You can find previous episodes and more at viewfromthegutters.com. including links to our Facebook and Twitter pages, as well as our Patreon page and online store. View from the Gutters is an independently produced podcast, and your contributions help enormously. You can also help us out by leaving a review on iTunes, as that helps new listeners find the show. You can also send us comments, questions, and recommendations at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep reading.